Subscribe to a chair. That's right, a chair. Why? Isn't it true sometimes you're having a dinner party with your in-laws, your not mom goes to sit down and you think, did I pay my bill for the chair this month? And she falls flat on her ass. Big trouble. But if you take a 1, 5, or a 7-year contract before your chair disappears, your days of worry will be over. No more embarrassing hip replacements. Brought to you by Ronsanto, expanding beyond food. We don't just grow food, we also grow profits. The Marshall Plan, or Foodies in a Time of Big Data, is a satire on contemporary Western society in terms of its obsessions with food, computers, and consumerism. Ready, Lucy?
Yes.
Ready, Ricky? Yeah! It's time to cook! The story follows Ricky, a scientist whose project is making glasses that can detect healthy food, working for an agricultural business company. Hello, everyone. As I think some of you may have heard, and as preposterous it may sound to some of you, I have created a pair of glasses that enables us to see the quality of any food we observe. Now, Ricky, listen. I loved your little science presentation you just gave right here, but sit down, listen to me. Here's the deal. We're going to continue to fund your little glasses project, but we got to ask you to do something for us. Promoting their products through a new cooking show, the company forces Ricky and his wife Lucy, an economics teacher, which is important, to be the stars or risk the project. You see, when we realized how TV commercials got to people, and then you offer them free stuff, they're going to buy your product. Sales went through the roof with that free cookbook deal, and now we've added pictures. Yeah, really, listen. Here's where you and your little wifeys come in. We make not a commercial, but a show that's just like a huge commercial. I mean, instead of 60 seconds, we'll have 20 minutes of you lovebirds making food with our new line of products. In the process of his rollout of the glasses, he also mysteriously shares with his colleagues a series of physics demonstrations seemingly intended to bring them along. Before I get to the marvel of what I've created, these glasses that can tell you what is really the food to eat, I'd like to take you on a little tour of how science got us to this point. Meanwhile, the cooking show has become more popular and unreal. And just as Lucy is about to quit, right before the release of the glasses, Ricky makes a final surprising discovery that leads to a crisis. This discovery, inadvertently made by their daughter Emily, age 12, makes the glasses irrelevant and reveals the truth. In the end, under the influence of her grandfather's stories and her mother's lectures in economics,
Good morning, class.
she's left with a surprising choice to be made in a film about food. Do you sometimes have trouble deciding whether vitamins really work as they should? Do you question vaccines? Did you prevent forest fires for years only to realize you were really creating a hell of a holocaust? What about science itself? Margarine or butter? Then what you need is our can't decide insurance. That's right, can't decide insurance. If you worry about your kids, you owe it to them to get our can't decide insurance. Brought to you by Ronsanto, ensuring an American future in partnership with the Tick Channel. The character of Ricky, who is, he and Lucy are really the main characters in the film. Ricky is a kind of a cross between the Wizard of Oz, Steve Jobs, and I don't know, kind of a bullshitter. The glasses, which now mean very little to me, have finally been created by the company, and I will present them on Friday. Finally, I can contribute something to making the world a better place. All brought to you by Ronsanto! Lucy's an interesting one because she's in the cooking show, and the cooking show evolves, and you see her in a very kind of a humoristic manner. But she's also an economics teacher, and there's 3 scenes in the piece where she gives serious economic lectures about the condition of the West in terms of overconsumption. It's interesting that the first one is called the morality of economics, the second one is called the psychology of economics, and the third one is called the biology of economics.
Talking about recycling, save the planet, while selling billions of phones, building appliances that last 2 years when before it was 50, capital should never be more important than people.
Walter, who's the grandfather, and he interacts a lot with the granddaughter, his granddaughter, the daughter of Ricky and Lucy, Emily.
The memory testing is over. You're fine.
I brought tacos.
Jack tacos.
The only taco that melts in your mouth like meringue. That meat product and that oil.
I can't even take clean burritos anymore. But I have decided something.
The key's always the tortilla.
The corn, tamales,
Chocolate.
mole,
Salsa.
guacamole,
Ceviche.
tequila.
Walter is kind of a Big Lebowski ex-surfer dude. So he's kind of kind of loosened up like this, wears Hawaiian shirts. He's kind of, let's not take things seriously. But he offers a serious critique of what Ricky is doing as a scientist and is doing with these glasses, which then mirrors what happens in the end when Ricky realizes the real point. Emily is a 12-year-old child, and in the film, there's not a lot you see. There's not a lot of dialogue coming from her, but she's crucial. The way that she's been constructed in the film is that she's kind of the overlooked child. But as the film unfolds and you watch how the thing happens, you realize she's more involved in this situation than you can imagine. Through her drawings, through her it's really indirect. We realize the details about Emily in an indirect way. Final character is Ned. Ned is the stereotype corporate guy. The threads in the film. The first one is the cooking show. There's a series of 4 or 5 vignettes of this cooking show. It does make a critique of how these audience participation shows have evolved. It's time to cook humiliation. It's time to cook.
Let's vote on what's good food.
The second thread is the science thread, putting on the glasses and being able to see exactly what food is good or not. This is the objective of the glasses, and they're being made by the company, Ricky's idea, but it's taking longer, so he gets into this whole diversion of talking about science and in particular light. And so he starts by talking about the nature of light in terms of what we see and how light is broken up by a prism into different parts. All of these vignettes are classic archetypal physics vignettes. There's nothing new in it, but the idea of the film is to begin to divert us as the audience, because now we see the marvelous aspect of it, and this is really a kind of metaphor for me in the film about the way in which science diverts us into these marvelous inventions and whatnot. But is it true? Is it relevant to what is going on? Or is it really just diverting our attention, keeping us entertained in a way while something else is going on? Science takes you where it wants to go. As a philosopher, I've always taken this very seriously. This idea of objectively discovering and finding something is baloney. What I mean to say in the film and what happens at the end of the film is, in fact, that you only are going where you're predetermined to go by the questions you ask, by the evidence you find. All of that bears on whether or not you see the truth or not. And so this thread is a very, very important part of this aspect of it. Not only God, but science is dead too. It's proven with these films. We are now truly, completely free. The economic lectures of Lucy. This is meant to be a serious critique from a serious economics person. And the question is, how boring will that be in the film? So this is something that is a very serious art making for me to get the right balance of holding the audience but also making the point. Also, there's an aspect in these economic classes that will involve the students, because you'll hear them as a kind of a refrain in terms of certain things that the teacher and the students judge to be unfair. So you'll see this going on almost like a gospel-y kind of movement between teacher or preacher and a congregation, students in this case.
Capital should never be more important than people.
Capital should never be more important than people.
A final thread in this is the history aspect coming from Walter. I watched the guy who shot Kennedy get shot right on TV like live wrestling. I was listening to a baseball stat when they killed Bobby. Dr. King, and I remember his daddy, they said that he should not be in LA because he was not from the state, and he said, I'm an American, I can go anywhere I want in this country. Philosophically, the film is very unique because there's no master shot. Keeping with the idea that there is no objectivity, that God is dead, that in a way science is objectivity is dead. So let's be serious in the cinema. It sounds more bizarre than it really is because everything, all the characters will be covered by what they're doing as long as there's another character there to see them. So that's not so difficult. Another philosophical dimension of this piece is the limits of science. This aspect of it, I think, is profound. Also, what I find interesting in terms of the philosophy is this overlooked child. You know, the final part is about the fact that, again, as an overlooked kid, there have been unintended consequences that that we experience through her. That is very curious, and I think that's very much a kind of contemporary issue as kids are in their other world with the computers and whatnot, and parents are doing their thing, and it's like, well, without that interaction, you can have a lot of unintended consequences. The economic critique coming from Lucy, philosophically, it's one I believe. Again, the limitations of capitalism, the unfairness of it, and what it's done to the environment, what it's done to the planet, what it's done to food itself. You know, at what point, seriously, does the most orange mean it's the best orange? Give me a break. I mean, Emily's videos, she makes these videos of three archetypal scenarios from relativity theory about the train station, about the twins. One goes to Mars and the other stays on Earth, and one ages, the one on Earth ages, and the one that goes to Mars does not. And the final one about Schrodinger's cat. The template of truth from this particular script is the truth that is gained through a cinematic image. Which one is true and which one is not. So it's a curious way to determine truth. And of course, we're going through that now as we talk about deep fakes and what's true and so on. Science's diversion is not enough. There's another value going on here, which is about people.
Kiss me once more, let me,
yeah, I really intended it as film from the beginning, and I was really struck by the visual elements of the film. It's quite diverse. I wanted a range of feelings in the film. You know, the cooking show is one kind of a thing. The maquettes of science is another kind of thing. The economics class is another kind of thing. I mean, you know, thinking about the economics class, for example, it's interesting to imagine a more nostalgic view of the classroom when we don't have classrooms in the way that we had before at the moment because of the pandemic. So that's kind of interesting. So what I've looked at in terms of the feel of the film and what it is a series of very diverse images, very basic black and white animation, in contrast with the glowing colors of the scientific maquette. The slapsticky cooking show in contrast with the intimate dialogue between Walter and Emily. So there's a great variation, I think, between these threads that I think makes it interesting. So the feel is eclectic. I would say that, visually eclectic. You got a cooking show that devolves into chaos. You got a bunch of scenarios of science that show you its limits, and you see in relation to both of these a child who's overlooked, who decides to do something in the end that is very ironical in a show about food.